Alright, I got the rest of the kit from Lars, which includes the intercooler and all the piping and all that. So I've actually got quite a bit of work done. I try to fit, I got the intercooler, it bolts up to these brackets. Actually, that's where your horn is. It just hooks onto that one, and then the other one, there's just a hole over here. Doesn't come with instructions, so it took me forever to figure that out. Also, there's a brace that usually runs from right here and it goes under for the latch, and you have to remove that or it won't work. I had to email Lars to find that out. But you can see the intercooler there. And then what else I did is I have to finish installing the injectors. I have the old fuel rail and the old injectors out, but one of my new injectors, the fuel basket was screwed up, so they're sending me a new one. But in the meantime, I hooked the intercooler up, and I didn't want to hook the turbo up yet because I want to get the injectors and then get it running right and tune it that way before I hook the turbo up. So what I did, just like get the turbo or the intercooler halfway done, is I did the cold side here and hooked that up. You can see it running down. There's the blow off valve that will be used once turbo. And then right now I have that hose just running around right to here where you're, and then the hose right here that comes out of your throttle body that was hooked up in your old intake tube hooks right into the top one, and he has these brass fittings included. So that's how it routes coming out, kind of off to the left and then curves down. And then under the car, you can kind of see that's where it's curving down from the throttle body. And then it comes down kind of an angle. It's a 90-degree elbow. It hooks into that, and the pipe turns, and there's just a straight coupler. And then on top here is where the IAC valve goes, and then this pipe turns and it goes into the intercooler here. But what I did is I had to run more wire up from, because first I had the IAC valve I just had laid in the bottom of the air box when I installed the wideband and the MS3 just to get it going. So I'd extend the wiring, and what I did was I just ran wire right up alongside kind of the radiator, and then once it comes up to the top, I have a zip tied to that hole, and what I did is I used a piece of metal coat hanger. I actually ran it along where there's some other wires, and then back in there is a hole that goes around, and then I ran it on top of the front support of the car. There's another wire there. I think that just runs to your lights in the front. I ran along that, zip tied it a few ways behind that headlight, and then I kind of followed those looms under there, ran it under that headlight, and you see it comes up there, and then I hooked up some loom wrap to it and taped a few times, and then I wired it back in, and I just used some high heat electrical tape, ran it all around the connections, and then I zip tied it all to a loom that's already up under here. The other big thing I decided to do, it took me a while to decide, was I ended up deciding to take the air conditioning out of the car. So you can see there's the power steering pump, and the AC pump would have been right there where that open space is underneath it. I decided this, even though I live in the South, was I don't really use it, the AC, mostly because the only time I drive this car I have the top down, and if you have the top down and the AC on full blast, you can't even tell it's on. The only time it even marginally helps is if you're sitting at a stoplight. But other than that, you don't even notice, and so much of it was in the way, and it robs a little bit of power from the engine. I figured why not, so I took all that and the lines and stuff out. But hopefully, and what I did on the other side, since I don't have the hot side of the intercooler hooked up, so I have no turbo, I just hooked up the air filter that comes with this kit. I just hooked it straight up to the other side of the intercooler. So now I basically have a regular NA intake, but without the big box and stuff, and I have everything else hooked up to where it should run normal with the new injectors and all that until I can finish it out. My plan is to get it running with the injectors, get it running well like that before I decide to finish it out. Because I think at the same time I'm going to replace the clutch the same time I'm I'm installing the turbo, just because to do the clutch you have to remove the downpipe and midpipe from your exhaust anyway. And while I'm down there, I'm going to go ahead and do it all at the same time. The only downside is once I have the turbo hooked up and the new clutch, I have to do 500 miles of braking on the clutch. So I'll probably just wire the wastegate over, which is fine because I want to make sure it's running right before I start using the boost anyway, so I don't think it'll be a big deal.